Hi guys. So, His Dark Materials episode 1 came out recently. His Dark Materials is this lovely fantasy trilogy being adapted to TV, and I started writing a script about episode 1. But I don't think we'll finish it as like a public, complete video because there isn't all that much to say about the opening episode. And I would like to talk about some of like the big underlying ideas and themes of the story, but I think that would be better explored in an overall season video. So I reckon we'll do like a His Dark Materials season 1 video at the end of the season. I think that would be cool. But we won't do like weekly His Dark Materials videos or anything. But still, we've got like half a script here, so I thought I would just present it to you guys in case you're interested in His Dark Materials, Episode 1. So here it is. His Dark Materials is a fantasy series by British author Philip Pullman. It's an adventure story through multiple worlds with talking polar bears and witches, and it also explores heavy religious ideas like original sin. His Dark Materials is partly a response to Paradise Lost and to Narnia. There was a 2007 movie adaptation, which most people think wasn't great, but now the BBC and HBO are releasing a new TV adaptation. So, what happens in episode 1, and how does it compare to the books? The story's set in an alternate world where humans have demons, which is like a human soul in the form of an animal. The world is dominated by the magisterium, which is basically the Catholic Church, although the show downplays the religious aspect and frames the magisterium as more of a generic, oppressive authority. We're also told that there is a prophecy of a child with a great destiny. That child is Lyra, and we see her as a baby, dropped on a doorstep, like Harry Potter in Book 1. Her uncle Asriel is giving her to be raised at Jordan College in Oxford during a great flood. This scene isn't in the original books, but it comes from the prequel book La Belle Sauvage. Asriel gives Lyra to the college under scholastic sanctuary, which is a legal protection mostly used by scholars to protect them from political persecution by the church. Lyra needs protection from the magisterium because of the prophecy about her. And again, like at points like this, we could elaborate in the video to like explain what's really going on here. But since this is episode 1 and we're trying to make this video spoiler free, like I'm not sure how deeply to explain things without like giving stuff away. So that's sort of part of why this video doesn't quite work, I think. And now Lyra's living at Jordan, playing with her friend Roger. Their opening dialogue is about rules, and how Lyra doesn't follow rules, because part of the point of this story is to celebrate rebellion against authority. The church sees rebellion against the authority of God as a sin. There was this whole thing with this guy called Lucifer, you might have heard of him. But His Dark Materials argues that rebelling and thinking for yourself is part of what makes us conscious and human. Lyra and Roger race down to the crypts, and Lyra steals a bottle of wine. The wine is forbidden to her, but she's curious to taste it, like Eve tasting the forbidden fruit in the Bible. In the books, Lyra checks out the coffins and skulls of dead scholars. Each of the coffins is labeled with the name of the dead person and the name of their demon. Each of the skulls has a bronze disc inside, engraved with the shape of their demon. So Lyra plays a trick on the dead, switching the discs so that the wrong demons are in the wrong skulls. But then she has a terrible, guilty nightmare, and she puts the discs back and says sorry. So this shows how sacred the connection between human and demon is in this world. And it also shows that even though Lyra is rebellious and mischievous, she has a conscience, and she wants to do the right thing. Asriel is an explorer and an aristocrat, and he's Lyra's uncle. On an expedition to the frozen north, he makes discoveries about a mysterious substance called dust, so he comes to Jordan College to get funding for more expeditions. Lyra sneaks out of class to see her uncle. She spies on the forbidden retiring room and sees the master of the college trying to poison Asriel, so Lyra saves her uncle. It turns out that Lyra's rule-breaking does good sometimes. Lyra asks why the Master would want to kill Asriel, because the Master was the one who accepted Lyra as a baby those years ago. Lyra thought he was their friend. But thing is, Asriel's research is controversial. The Magisterium would see it as heresy, and if the college was seen supporting Asriel, that could put the college at risk. The Master might even suspect that studying dust could put the world at risk. In the book, it says that the Master had terrible choices to make. Whatever he chooses will do harm, but maybe if he does the right thing, a little less harm will come about than if he chooses wrong. So, the Master is a complicated, morally ambiguous character. Asriel asks Lyra to spy on his meeting with the scholars, so she hides inside a little cupboard thing. In the book, she hides in a wardrobe, which is a reference to the Narnia book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It begins with a young girl entering a wardrobe into a world of magic and Christian allegory. His Dark Materials author, Philip Pullman, called the Narnia books ugly and poisonous. He criticizes how Narnia ends by killing off its young protagonists and having them live in heaven with Lion Jesus instead of getting to grow up and learn as adults. So in his Dark Materials, when Lyra gets on a wardrobe, she starts a story that's all about growing up and embracing the complexities of adult life. It's a deliberate contrast to Narnia, so it sucks that the TV show replaces the wardrobe with this waist-high chest sort of thing. Asriel reveals his discovery to the scholars. He found proof that a mysterious substance called dust is attracted to adults but not to children. Without spoiling anything, this is about the story's themes of sin and innocence and consciousness. Asriel also has a photo of the Northern Lights at this time of year, at this time of day, localized entirely in your kitchen. Simpsons meme. But the point is that within the Northern Lights, Asriel finds an aurora. Within the aurora, Asriel finds what looks to be a city in the sky. It's evidence that there are worlds other than these. What's the quote from The Gunslinger? There are other worlds than these. There are other parallel dimensions, which are somehow accessible through dust. And then, to top it all off, Asriel presents a severed head, which is how all great funding applications should end. Asriel says this is a war between the Magisterium trying to keep everyone ignorant and the scholars fighting for freedom. And needless to say, Asriel gets his funding. Later, Asriel carries Lyra to bed, and he shows a tenderness and affection that he doesn't have in the books. Asriel in the books is cold and harsh, and Lyra admires him but also fears him. Book Asriel can be aggressive to Lyra, and he suddenly doesn't gently tuck her into bed. But it looks like the show is going for a more likable version of Asriel. Lyra wants to know about dust, and she wants to see the North, but Asriel keeps her ignorant. Knowledge means losing your innocence and growing up, and the world is trying to keep Lyra a child, inside the Garden of Eden, not knowing good and evil. We're introduced to the Egyptians, a culture inspired by the real-world Romani people. Actually, I can pull up the visuals, I think. So these are the Egyptians. They have a coming-of-age ceremony for Tony Costa in another scene that wasn't in the books. But it explains how, in this world, children's demons can change their shape into different kinds of animals until they grow up and reach puberty, at which point the demon settles and stays in the same shape. It represents how someone's personality and identity is formed in their teenage years as they become an adult. After the ceremony, Tony's brother Billy wanders off and gets captured by a mysterious group called the Gobblers. So this is another scene that wasn't in the books. And I guess what they're just trying to reinforce is like the whole importance of the demon-human relationship. But it's unfortunate that in this scene that's all about demons, there aren't very many demons. Because this is meant to be a world where every person has an animal companion with them at all times. But none of these people appear to have demons with them. Like, there are some later crowd scenes where we can see some like birds flying overhead and whatever, which is nice, but it's sort of awkward how this scene is all about demons and there's no bloody demons in it. That seems really silly. And obviously they're just trying to save money on CGI, but it still feels like a shame. Anyway, that's about as far as like the script goes, but there are a few other things I'd like to mention. So one of the other sort of one of the scenes in the books that isn't in the show, it explores a lot more of Lyra's life at Jordan, and it shows her hanging out with Egyptians and with other kids in the area, and we get a very different sort of picture of Lyra's childhood. Like in the show, Lyra says that Roger is her only friend. And we get this we get this sense of Lyra as this very like lonely and sort of vulnerable, sad girl. Whereas in the books, she's like the leader of a whole pack of children, and it describes her going to quote unquote war with other children, throwing clay at each other, and she steals a boat from the Egyptians, and it's this much more adventurous, joyful childhood, which makes Lyra a more dynamic, exciting character, I think. But I guess in the show they're going for a more like emotionally vulnerable character. There's this particular scene that I love where there's like a fight about to start between Lyra and some like Egyptian kids or something. And and the books describe Lyra throwing down her cigarette as everyone's demons suddenly becomes warlike. So like they can change their demons into different animals, so they get these fanged animals and bristling furred animals. And Lyra's demon Pan transforms into a dragon the size of a dog, contemptuous of the limited imaginations of these Egyptian demons. Which is a really cool way of like, I mean, it's just cool as fuck the way she drops her cigarette and gets a dragon. But also just like describing the power of imagination is Lyra's power in this moment. There's just a lot of cool stuff like that that isn't captured in the show, but you got to cut something, I suppose. Something that people on Reddit have noticed is that the Magisterium building is located in the same place where Buckingham Palace is located in real life, which is a cool like visual way of showing how the power of the Magisterium is the governmental power in this world. It's funny when Lyra tries to like shout into the alethiometer at one point because she doesn't know how to use the alethiometer yet. But yeah, overall, I thought it was a pretty good adaptation, but I don't know. We've got to sort of see what comes next before we really know what's going on, I think. So yeah, hopefully we'll do a His Dark Materials Season 1 explained sort of video later on. I think that would be really cool. But what we're doing for now is we're going to work on The Expanse, which is that sci-fi series that we've done a couple of videos about. And you didn't get it from me, but someone might have just gotten access to Season 4 episodes early, the upcoming next season of this show. And I think we've got an opportunity to make some really cool The Expanse content. So that's what we're going to do for the moment. We're going to make this big recap video summing up the last 3 seasons in advance of the 4th season. So it'll be accessible, it'll be fun, and I think that'll be a really cool video. So that's what we're working on at the moment. There is also Watchmen. Watchmen is interesting. I also feel like His Dark Materials, we've got to sort of see where it's going. Watchmen is a lot more confounding to me than His Dark Materials is. I'd like to see how it goes, and maybe we'll do like a Watchmen Season 1 explained sort of video after its season. We'll see what happens. So that's what's happening at the moment. We're working on The Expanse. I hope you enjoyed this little His Dark Materials video. Thank you so much for supporting. We'll keep you posted on Patreon. And have a good one. Cheers.